Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies.
Morning, Bill.
Hey, Peter. Episode number 280. 280.
Nice even number.
Yes. The name of today's episode is Creative Real Estate Quick Turn Documents and How to Use Them Safely.
Quick turn documents. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll find out what that is when you find out, folks.
There you go. So here's the description. Everyone wins or I don't play. Is the drum I beat in every deal that I do. But you can't do this by guessing how to do deals. In other words, you have to back up your offers with something in writing. Especially the quick turn deals. You can't go off spending months learning how to do the deal or hire the legal beagles to do your tabletop closings in the house. In podcast number 278, called Never Revealed Before, Savvy Creative Real Estate Never Revealed Before, Savvy Creative Real Estate Deal Structuring, I talked about how this, we talked about all this, right, Peter?
Yeah.
And at the end of the podcast, I talked about the paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I talked about, I kind of alluded to it, right?
Briefly, yeah, because you used to look at a deal when you're buying it, like how would you do the paperwork, but then we realized more on how would you sell it, a lot more details, which is 278. But then you ended with then you know what paperwork to do. So today we talk more about paperwork?
Yes. So today I'm going to elevate on how this works by matching common documents to average seller situations so you get a better idea of how I make these slamming deals with the exact documents that everyone loves.
Mm-hmm.
And as you will see, it really isn't as hard as so many make it out to be. Only because most folks do the process backwards. And this is the number one confusion in every deal, is they do it backwards. And of course, this single podcast is the perfect place to sort this out in your own mind so you too can start doing deals safely. But I warn you, things will never be the same in your mind about deal structuring after you listen to this podcast.
And that's a good thing.
Right.
You don't forget, a mind is a terrible thing.
All right, before we get started, I would like you to know that I am going to talk about documents today. So if you go into the description of this podcast or this video, however you're looking at us or watching us or hearing us, there's a link in there on the documents I use. It's every document for every type of creative real estate deal is there. Just go click on the link and you see how you can get them. Also, every Thursday morning, usually every Thursday morning at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, give or take, we record this podcast and we live stream it on YouTube and Facebook. So if you go to YouTube or Facebook, you can type in Flipping Houses for Rookies and you can find us there. Not only can you find us for the live broadcast, but all the podcasts that we do are there stored so you can go listen or watch them there as well. Plus, you should subscribe to the channel and leave some sort of a review for us wherever you're listening to us or watching us so we can hear your feedback and know how to make adjustments. Okay? All right, Pete. So today we're going to start off with saying this is a sequel, meaning, done after or done in conjunction with podcast number 278, Never Revealed Before Today, Savvy Creative Real Estate Deal Structuring. So it would be wise for our listeners to listen to both podcasts, number 278 and 280. Okay. In that podcast, in number 270, I spoke about what goes through my mind when deal structuring and how I connect the dots. And I revealed, I got to read my writing here. I revealed how I listen to the seller's needs and wants, then figure out in my own mind how I can exit the deal so I can help that seller get what they want and fund the deal along with profit for me. Right? That's what we talked about. So if any of our listeners have not heard that podcast yet, they should go listen to it, because it will help a whole lot and make a whole lot more sense what we're about to talk about. Now, even if you haven't listened to that podcast, it will still make sense, but it'll make more sense if you listen to podcast number 278, which is inside my mind, how I think about deals when I'm structuring them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start off with a few basic rules I think about in every deal, right?
Yeah.
So number one, and there's three of them. So number one, this is what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about deals. Do I need to put money in or out of the deal? I mean, in the deal or not? Do I need to put money in the deal or don't I need to put money in the deal?
Yeah.
If I do, I'll need to get a deed. If I'm putting money in, I need to get a deed. Right? So to me,
Sure.
is anything, I'm going to go over this in a minute, but anything more than $5,000 is significant money in a deal.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I know I can usually get at least $5,000 back from my buyer. Right? So do I need to put money in or don't I? And that'll
Sure.
make a difference if whether or not I need to use a deed or not use a deed.
Sure.
Right? And that makes a big difference. I'm going to go over in a minute why.
Okay.
So this money could be for the purchase. So I'm going to buy the house at a significant discount. I'm going to go get private money and I'm going to buy the house. It could be that I need to rehab it. Like I might get it subject to, but I'm going to need to rehab it. I don't need to get the first mortgage, but I'm going to need to put money into the property to rehab it. Do some minor fix-ups. Sometimes I'll need to put in a driveway or put in a new, work on the lawn or, whatever. I don't do a lot of that stuff anymore, but minor fix-up, maybe paint it, put carpets in, right? Sometimes I know that I'm going into a funny time of the year, like here in Connecticut, January and February are snow season. So I know if I'm buying a house in December, I'm probably not going to I'm not going to bestow that on myself. Like, I'm not going to sell this house till March, and make that a decision, but I know that it's possible. So I'm going to have holding costs. I might have 3 months worth of holding costs I might be worried about.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe I'm dealing with a seller that's, and this is Peter, we don't talk about this enough. We should do a podcast about this. We do not talk about this enough. Post-COVID. Post-COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And people being in the rear. And the arrears. In other words, they're behind on payments because they lost their job because of COVID, all that stuff. I mean, that stuff is starting to come around now. We should talk about that more, right? So, but we might need money, or if we don't get money, how can we put that mortgage in some sort of an agreement with the bank? Sure. Right? And work out that agreement with them. I've had a couple deals like that, right?
Yeah, the one I talked was $5,000 in arrears.
Right. Sure. Right. So
it's not unusual.
What I mean by money in, I'm talking about not getting the money back in 30 days. So when I say I'm going to put money into a deal, that means when I do my lease option, or if I'm going to wholesale it, or I'm not going to. I don't plan on getting my money back in 30 days. Mm-hmm. So that means I got money in the deal.
Yep.
Okay? So, T-Mobile just sent me a text that I've used 80% of my hotspot for the month.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it looks like I'm
Well, we're going to be talking fast today. Go ahead, Bill. We're going to be talking fast today.
All right, so does this make sense? So if I'm going to put money in, I'm going to get a deed.
As you freeze.
Yeah. Okay, I'm back. So
Here we
sorry
are.
about that. Yeah, sorry about that. Keep losing my signal here.
At least
All
you're
right.
froze with a smile on your face.
So number one is, how much money am I putting in the deal? And that depends on how I'm going to do the paperwork. So
Sure.
if I'm going to put a lot of money in, I'm going to want to get a deed. If I'm not, then I don't have to worry about it. Okay. Number two concern is, how confident am I that I can sell? Or find a buyer based on the seller's requirements
Yep.
to buy?
Yeah.
How confident am I that I can sell this property? And that'll make a difference on what type of paperwork I'm going to use.
Sure.
Do I want to obligate and stick it out and know I'm going to make money? Or do I want to just kind of test the market out and have like kind of a loose agreement where if I don't buy it, I don't get hurt?
Sure.
Number three, the money now, money monthly, money later dictates how much time I can mess around with this deal. Right?
Yeah.
Which affects which documents I'm going to use. So the quick turn deals that I'm talking about are the slot deals. You get in, you get out, you do the deal quick. So you don't want to be messing around with doing deals that you need to do a lot of paperwork with. You want to do quick turn real estate deals. So in other words, you're going to do your lease and your options, and you're going to get in and out. So you don't need a lot of heavy duty, heavy lifting paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That makes sense.
So this is the part where things are backwards for most people. We talked about this a lot in episode 280. So what happens is they think they need the docs to structure the deal. So I know a lot of new guys will come in and they're like, oh my God, what documents do I use? They think they need to understand the documents before they can make a commitment to the deal. Right? It's a common problem.
Yeah.
Actually, once they know the exit strategy, the docs set the deal up for that strategy. Right? So knowing how you can sell, as you put it in the last podcast, the exit strategy, knowing who your seller is and how many of them are there is important.
Buyers?
Yes, I said sellers. Yeah,
Yeah.
I meant buyers. Yeah.
Buyers. Yeah.
So knowing how
Yeah.
many buyers you have, and willing to lunge at this deal because it is a deal. I mean, we do this with private money too, right? So we have no problem getting private money if we got a slamming deal, right?
Sure. Well,
I mean,
they have to look at it. Is their money safe? Are they going to get it back? Are they going to get their interest?
So that's what we're doing here. Is if we commit to this, am I safe? Am I going to get my money back? Is how much profit am I going to make? It's the same thought process, right? Which, remember or realize, if you've never heard me say this before, the definition of a good deal is a lot of exit strategies. So if something screws up, you can easily flip to another strategy and get rid of it. Like we had a property that we bought, I think last year. We sold it last year. It was a $200,000 property we bought for $27,500. We had almost $40,000 made on wholesale money and opted not to do it. We did the renovation and made $93,000. But here's my point. At $27,000, how hard is it for us to get rid of that deal? Yeah.
You could just wholesale to the next guy, rehab it, and take take 50,000 profit, 60,000, and not need 90 or 70, whatever it is.
Yep.
You know, sell it way below market and get out fast if you have
Or
to.
we could
Still make money.
prehab it. We could prehab it, which means we spend less money, not 60,000, spend 10,000, and just clean it up and let somebody else rehab it.
Yep.
Or do a handyman special on a rent to own, right? Or we could wholesale it, like you said, or we could rent it. Just, you know, we could have just spent a little bit of money and just rented it, not did all the work, right? There were so many choices that your confidence soars when you have deals like that, right? So these are the concerns. So I'm worried about, or not worried, I'm thinking about, do I need to put money in to the deal, and how much do I need to put into the deal? And if I do put money into the deal, that's going to like kind of guide me to what kind of paperwork I'm going to need to protect the money. Because if I'm going to put $20,000 into a deal, I want the deed in my name, and I want to protect my 20 grand. Right? Because the reason why I say that is because the only way that I could sell this property is if I sign the deed. And the only way I'm going to sign the deed is if I get my 20 grand back.
Yeah.
Right? So it's protecting the money because I'm making the choice. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I look at it real simple. I'm thinking, if I was renting something, like I was living in an apartment, would you spend $20,000, $30,000 renovating it? No, it's not mine.
right.
It's not. I don't own it. Don't even barely control it.
Right.
So sometimes we control properties with an option, but it doesn't mean we own it. So why would you put money in it? You might not have. You might change your mind, flip it. You might leave. So sorry, I didn't sell it. I'm not leaving my $20,000 in somebody else's house.
Right.
Nope.
So you lose control. You're not control of your own money when you do that because you don't have ownership rights. Okay.
Yep.
So these are the three concerns that I have. And then the next thing to realize is responsibility level of the documents.
Could you review the three things briefly again?
Yeah. So one was the money. I just did that. One was the money that we put in, how much money we have to put in, and that dictates whether we get a deed or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one is how confident can I sell it?
Yep.
How confident am I that I can sell it or get rid of it and not be stuck with it?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's money now, money monthly, money later dictates how much time I put into the deal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If I have just money now and I'm doing a slot deal, I'm not going to spend 40 hours on it. I'm going to spend 10 hours on it. And if the deal doesn't happen because I'm going to make 5 or 10 grand, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this deal. But that property that we made $93,000 on, I went out to that property every single day for 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
I spent more time on it because there was more profit.
Yep.
Right. So you have to make your time worthwhile. You have to get your ROI, return on investment, for your time.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are the three concerns that I have. So the next thing is to realize responsibility level of the document outcome. So let me show you. One, having the deed is at the top of the hierarchy. So if you had a hierarchy like what's the top and what's the bottom, like a scale, having the deed is the most responsible and legal obligation.
Yeah.
Right? So, let me see here. I wrote something at the end of the podcast that describes that better, but we'll wait till we get there. So once you have the deed in your name, it's the most control or the most responsibility.
Sure is.
Right? So you can say whatever. Below that in the hierarchy is an agreement for deed, is the next one down. It's got less responsibility. Right? Because you don't have the deed in your name. So an agreement for deed simply means that the deed's not in your name, it's still in the seller's name. You have a contract with the things that you're going to do or not going to do. And when you meet those obligations, he gives you the deed or she gives you the deed. Right? So there's a little cushion in there. So if you back out of the deal, you don't have money in the deal. That's the difference. And you have nothing to lose. If you put a bunch of money into the deal, then you got something to lose and you got to stay in the deal.
Yeah.
Right? So you're in an agreement that you don't want to have. So basically, here's what happens, Pete. These hierarchies are determined by how much confidence you have in the outcome.
That makes sense.
Right? So a deed, you have a lot of confidence because you're taking on all the legal responsibility, which means if somebody trips and falls, they're suing you or your insurance company. The taxes are in your name, the water's in your name. It's like all the municipals can come after you. Lawsuits could be attached to the title or to the deed, right? So all these can happen when the deed is in your name because the deed is on public record, and you could be attacked by lawyers and other entities to get their money or whatever they're after, right? And sometimes they're fictitious lawsuits. Somebody trips and falls, and they're trying to sue you for $30,000 because they said the sidewalk was uneven. And the sidewalk's not even on your property; it's on the city property. It's crap like that. You know what I mean? It's just things that happen. So you use these hierarchies based on your confidence level of your exit strategy. So number one is the deed. Number two is an agreement for deed, right? Number three is the lease option to buy, or lease option to sell. It's a lease with an option to sell.
Okay.
Right. So the land contract is in between the deed and the lease with an option to sell. Now, in most cases, the land contract, or I'm saying land contract, the agreement for deed, they're the same thing. The agreement for deed is a better document than a lease because a bank will notice the agreement for deed as an ownership with a mortgage. So when the bank looks at it, it'll look at it like, well, this person, even though they don't have the deed, they have ownership or controlled ownership. And what will happen is the bank will refinance that deal instead of having to go get a new loan. Plus, you'll get principal reduction on agreement for deed. On a lease with an option, it's not likely you'll get principal reduction unless you word it that way, which I have done. All right, but more importantly, the lease is just use of the property. So when you go to purchase the property, you have to get a new loan. The bank doesn't recognize the option as ownership.
Yeah.
So the big thing there, the big takeaway there is if you're going to do deals like we do multifamily deals and we do rent to owns, or we take over, we do what we call a master lease. So we'll master lease the whole house and then sublease the 3 different apartments, right? When I do those, I like to do them with a land contractor on an agreement for deed, same document. And the reason why is because when the 5 years expires, right, I can go to the bank and get it refinanced as opposed to getting a new loan and putting down 20% and going through all that rigmarole. Okay, so it's a better document. Cool. And then below the lease option is just an option agreement. And then below the option agreement is a memorandum, and below the memorandum is a letter of intent. So that's the importance factor, like the legal factor.
Sure.
Right? So before I go any further, let me explain what I mean by responsibility. Okay. To me, that means a personal guarantee that if something's going to go wrong, you personally can get attacked. Right? So that's the responsibility factor I'm talking about, is you personally guarantee it. So if you put your name on a deed, even though you can put it in your entity, on an LLC or something like that, it means that entity, or because you control that entity, can be attacked.
Sure. Right?
So if I were to use a lease with an option, it could get attacked, but the likelihood of prosecuting me is very low. Right? I'll tell you one of the things. Right. One of the things that Ron LeGrand talks about is you don't personally guarantee loans. That's what kills you, especially when the market goes down, which is kind of hard to do because all my private loans and all that stuff are all personally guaranteed anyways, but they're people I know. And I wouldn't want to stiff them anyways. But you're not going to want to go get, you're not going to. So full responsibility of a house is you got a deed in your name and you have a mortgage in your name. That's taking full responsibility. And that to me is a risky situation because if things change, they attack you, right? So if a deal feels shaky, right? And I'm not sure, I don't have confidence level that I can sell it. I'm going to use documents that are going to let me, lower on the hierarchy so that I have less legal ramifications.
Yeah.
Right? So like, I had just had an example and it flew out of my head. So basically what I'm saying is that you can get out of the deal quicker on the lower hierarchies.
Yeah.
Right? And not have somebody come back and sue you.
Yeah, like an option, you don't own the property.
Right. You just lose your
option consideration.
Yeah,
money.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah,
so if you only
$20,
if you only put down $100 like we taught you to do, then you're not really risking a lot. So the only way to not lose money in real estate is that, and I don't say this enough, we know the only way to lose money in real estate is don't put money in.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is the only way to not lose money in real estate is not to personally guarantee loans.
Mm.
Right?
Yep.
Because then if you do, then you're at risk.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now here's what happens when you personally guarantee something. That means that not only is the property you're buying at risk, but your other assets are at risk.
Yeah, because it's you and anything you own. It's
Right.
you.
So let's take a subject to deal where I go over, where I take over the mortgage, right, and commitment from the seller. So basically, a subject to means that I'm taking over the subject to means it's subject to the underlying agreement with the bank already. So you're taking over that agreement or that commitment that they already made, and you're taking over that agreement. So it's subject to what the mortgage already says. So if they're paying 10% interest and it's for 3.5 months, then that's what you're agreeing to, right?
Yeah.
Or if it's
read the mortgage.
Yeah, or if it's 4% for 20-something years, then you're good, right? So let's say I take over a subject to deal where the seller is going to just throw me the house. They're just going to give me the house, right? And it only has a 70% loan to value ratio, and I feel when I sell it, it'll be popular with my buyers. Mm-hmm. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. It's in a good neighborhood, all that kind of stuff. Which means I have a lot of buyers to choose from. So sure. I feel comfortable with this deal, right? And I don't need more than $1,000 to do the whole deal.
Mm.
Well, I can do a standard subject to document. There's 6 documents to do subject to. I can do a standard subject to kitchen table closing. Mm-hmm. Because they're willing to just sign the documents. The deal is good. I don't mind putting the deed in my name because the payment is low, the money is low. There's not a lot of risk to the deal because I know I have a lot of buyers that I can choose from because it'll be a popular house, right? So I don't mind putting that deed in my name, right? But if you take the same deal, right, and now the seller wants to have an attorney review the deal, right? We talked about this in the last podcast. So the likelihood of the attorney saying, yeah, sign over your mortgage and put the deed in somebody else's name, they're going to be like, no, because they don't understand trusts and they don't understand what we do. 99% of all attorneys don't know what a property trust is or have to be educated on it. Yeah, because it's not used a lot. It's not used a lot, that's why. Because the only thing that's in a property trust is that property. So the property trust gives us the ability to put a deed in it and own it. That's all it does. It has nothing else in it. If an attorney starts talking about Social Security numbers and tax IDs and all that for a trust, he's doing the wrong type of trust. The property trust we do, we have a document called the Warranty Deed of Trust. Mm-hmm. It warranties the deed. It changes ownership, and it makes the trust all on one signature. That's a 1.5 pages long. Okay? It's an amazing document.
Yep.
And that's why I put the link in the chat or in the description of this podcast, because people are going to want to know more about that. Just go look at that link and you can go figure it out, right? So in this particular case, it's the same deal. It's a slamming deal, right? 70% down, doesn't need more than $1,000, has a low payment, right? It's really good deal, except the seller says we're going to use an attorney. So now I'm not going to do a tabletop closing anymore in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Because the attorney's not going to like that paperwork. Not that there's anything wrong with it, he just doesn't understand it, and I'm going to lose a deal.
And he's not getting paid.
So nobody's getting paid, right? Yeah. He'll spook the seller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign a purchase and sales contract with them in the house. And I'm going to go do a regular closing, and I'm going to do a wraparound mortgage with them, which means that so suppose in this case, I'm giving them $1,000, so I'm paying them $1,000 above it. So the wraparound mortgage says I'm going to take over your mortgage payment for $120,000 and $1,000 plus that. So I'm going to pay $121,000, and so there's a loan for $1,000. I mean, there's a $1,000 part plus the $120 part. And I'm going to give you $1,000 down payment.
And I was just thinking, gee, you could just write them a check for $1,000, but that's not the point. You want to give them anything extra, to have the wraparound mortgage. So it's the mortgage to the seller, not taking over the mortgage, which makes the lawyer nervous. It makes sense that way.
Exactly.
And it's worth $1,000 to get the deal.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so it looks like you're taking a mortgage for $121 and you gave them $1,000 down. But more importantly, by giving them a mortgage, the seller has security now, because they can come after you for not executing on that mortgage. So they can foreclose on you.
Right, because that entire mortgage, now that you added that extra $1,000, is with the seller himself, and he pays his mortgage to the bank out of the proceeds, right?
Right, and that's what it's wrapping around. It's wrapping around the initial mortgage, so you don't have to pay off the mortgage. You can leave the mortgage in place and still have a mortgage with us.
Which is a way, sometimes people get worried about the deed passing and the bank wanting to be paid because they think the house got sold and they want their money. Right. Okay. Solves a lot of problems. That's crazy.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I remember when you kind of worked that out a year or two ago.
Yeah, that's a little bit different when I was working on it. I've done this for quite a while, but yeah, you're right. Okay. So the point is that as I'm talking to my seller and doing deal structuring in my head, the exit strategy didn't change. I'm still going to sell on a lease to own. I'm still going to do all that stuff. But because they said they want to use an attorney, it automatically flips a switch in my head and it tells me which documents to use.
Yeah.
Right?
And you do that before they say no, or do you try the other documents, see if they say yes?
No, nowadays I ask them if they plan on getting legal advice. And then I just do it the right way. Right?
Yeah. It's better not to get no, I think, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
no's are decisions.
Mm-hmm.
No's are decisions. They're like, I'm not willing to do that. Mm-hmm. So you want to know what those are in your discovery stage as soon as possible.
Yeah.
All right, now look at this. It'll be difficult for me to assign a mortgage, right?
Yeah.
So that means I plan to stay in the deal for a long time. So if I get the document, if I get the deed at the closing, I plan on staying in the deal for a long time. Or if I do a wraparound mortgage, I plan on staying in the deal. I don't plan on assigning this deal to somebody else. Although I could, I don't plan on doing it because it's a little bit harder to assign a mortgage.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Now let's say the same deal changes by not being a 70% loan to value ratio.
What do we have now?
Instead, it's like, we'll say 89% loan to value.
It's kind of high.
Okay, so our math says if we're going to do a subject to deal, we should be around 80%.
Mm-hmm.
But we're at almost 90.
Yeah.
Okay? And I plan, and I don't want the deed in my name. I don't need to have the deed in my name. I'm not worried because I'm not putting any money in. I only have $1,000 I'm going to invest in this thing. I don't really need the deed in my name.
Okay.
right? So I have a question in my mind if I can find a buyer that will pay this new elevated price. Right? So will it be less popular for my buyers because of the price? I don't know until I bring it to the market, right? So when I'm doing the deal structure,
do that if you already committed.
So when I'm doing the deal structuring, I have these questions in my mind.
Yeah.
I know I keep cutting in and out, so sorry. So I know I have these questions in my mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you with me?
Yeah. You hear me?
Yeah. So when I'm doing this deal structuring, I have these questions because they owe 89 or 90% of its value. Technically, based on our 7 deal strategy, I should be doing an option agreement with them, but I'm planning on doing a subject to with them.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to do that because they're willing to just give me my payments and turn this house over to me. Or most important, they're nervous about giving me the deed.
Mm-hmm.
So how could I do this deal if they're not willing to give me the deed on a subject to property? Well, because I don't have any money in, I don't have to worry about getting the deed because I have no money in. So I can do an agreement for deed.
Okay.
Which gives me all the same strengths, except I can just write an agreement for deed, which is just an agreement that says if I do all these things, the seller will give me the deed, one of which is pay them. Right? But when I do an agreement for deed, I still get all the principal reductions every time I pay the mortgage. And if I want to go refinance it, they'll let me refinance it. So it's the same deal. It's the same subject to deal with 3 different scenarios. And all that changed was the paperwork, not the deal. And it really comes down to my confidence on what I think I can and can't do. Like the first one is a total laydown. Like, okay, it's really easy to do. So I just do a tabletop closing. The second one, well, the attorney might be a hiccup, so let me make the paperwork so it's adaptable or acceptable by the attorney. Why try to buck it?
Sure.
And then the third one is, well, the price, the elevation of the price elevated up to 90% loan to value ratio or 89%. Can I really sell this thing for that much money? Right? But if I do, I want to have a good agreement.
Yep.
Am I back? Oh my God.
Yeah, I didn't lose you.
Okay,
Did you
so
lose
if
me?
yeah,
Okay, you're good.
So if I do, I want to have a good agreement. So I write an agreement for deed, right?
Sure.
So then I put it on the market, and I find out that the property is popular with the buyers.
Yeah.
So I just write a lease with an option to buy with my seller, and I'm good. But what happens if it's not popular with the sellers and I can only make a couple grand on the property? Well, I can take the agreement for deed and just assign it to somebody, and they give me $2,000, or $3,000, or $5,000, and I'm done. You see, but I figured this out in my discovery stage based on what the seller wants. So that's what makes me unique. Is it doesn't matter what the seller says. I always have an answer of, well, we could do this or we could do that. And in episode number 278 and now 280, I'm explaining why I can do that. Because what I'm doing, and the breakthrough is I'm looking at how many buyers, how popular will this house be with buyers, what will they be willing to pay, what will they be willing to pay monthly, what will they be willing to do for terms. Right? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Well, you have the 7 deals. You have the money now, monthly later, but then the paperwork kind of seems to splits it a little further, that you can modify and adjust exactly to the seller's concerns or nerves level or unwillingness, willingness, attorney, no attorney. And It's not a huge difference in how you're handling the whole deal. Almost no difference in how you're selling it. Maybe no difference at all. and you still have ways to stay in the deal. That's what I'm getting at. You can stay in the deal no matter what happens. I mean, think of this one, folks. A lot of people get into real estate like, oh, I'm going to do wholesaling, right? I'm going to do rehabs. They pick one. And it just doesn't fit every seller. It doesn't fit every market. It doesn't fit the buyer's pool we're in. So if you know as much as Bill does, and I hang on for dear life and try to keep up with you.
Yeah, but that's what my point is you don't need to know a lot at this particular point. It's just simple math. If you know how much you can sell for, you can now say how much you can pay for. If you know how much if you know how much the buyer is willing to pay you, then you know how much you can pay your seller.
Yep.
If you know how much term or how much time your buyer is willing to give you, then you can now do a deal with your seller.
Yeah.
That's why I keep saying it's backwards, because we look at it backwards. And I didn't realize this until my coaching client, he opened up a can of worms in my head, because he didn't say all the stuff we're saying here. He was just talking about bouncing the money now, money monthly, money later up against the four things that we need to have as an acquisition manager, which is, price and payment and terms and deposit.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what made me realize, I'm looking at how can I sell this thing? Too many gurus have said, and this is maybe not new to some of you, but they say, if you know your exit strategy, then you're good. You make your money at the buy and you collect it when you sell.
Sure, but where's the details on that? How do you do that? It's one thing to say what you do. And we know this. We talk a lot because we're both educators to a certain degree. And we say, you can tell somebody what they have to do, but that's cute. How? Tell me some details. What are the steps to this thing? You know something I don't know. You're not telling me. So this is really good nitty gritty. This is good.
So what you're doing is you're when you're talking to your seller, to reiterate it for the 100th time, you're bouncing their concerns or what they're willing to do up against the market. Mm-hmm. What is the market? Will the market allow that? Will the market? So it's not me answering. It's not me saying, "Oh, I can't pay $230,000 for this house." It's like the market won't bear that. I think the most I could get is $210,000. So why would I put myself in a position to take your problem on? This is your problem. Your problem is you need to get $230,000. It's not mine. It's not my problem. It's your problem. Mm-hmm. So why are you thwarting or restricting or making barriers in the market? Now maybe it's because they have to, or maybe because they're greedy, or maybe because they don't want to pay fees, or there's some reason. Mm-hmm. But realize you don't have to assume that responsibility. It's their problem, not yours. So when you're talking to them, it's not the same old like investor against seller, like the common old school think is, when you're negotiating, somebody has to pay for it. Either the buyer or the seller have to pay for it. Like if I buy your house for $230,000 and it's worth $250,000, you're paying me $20,000 to do it. It's not that way. You don't have that competition now. So now the conversation goes like this. Pete, if I bring this thing to market, I think the most I can get is $210,000. I've done my research. There's comparables. I can show you how I come up with that number. But the most I think I can get is $210,000. You're asking $230,000.
Yep.
So I'm willing to pay the $230,000, but I need a 15-year loan time. Mm-hmm. I need to be able to let the cash payments catch up with the $20,000 I'm overpaying. So I'm not going to cash out within the first 5 years. I'm going to put somebody in there and I'm going to give them a 5-year lease, and I'm going to hope they don't cash me out so I can make some money. Because otherwise, how do I make money?
Yeah.
And here's the punchline, Peter. Here's the punchline.
Yeah.
Please listen. You know this, but the listener should write this down. So Pete, if you were me in my position, would you pay the $230,000? Right? And you just stop talking.
Boy, shoe on the other foot.
Yeah. And right away they get really nasty and they're like, wah, and they just leave because they didn't like it, or they come into your way of thinking.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. What could we do?
Yeah. They either stay a jerk or calm down.
Right. Which, by the way, if it's worth 210, I'll pay 220. But the thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my 4 pieces, right? So I'm going to price, payments, term, and down payment. So I'm not paying any down payment. No way I'm paying that. That just eliminated if I'm paying over 20,000. So the next thing I'm going to go after is I'm going to go after my cash flow. So I'm going to want to make up the difference. I'm going to have $700 or $800 a month in cash flow, we'll say, and that'll make up the difference, right? And I'm going to want to stretch the term out so the cash flow can pay down that $20,000 that I'm overpaying.
Yep.
Right? It kind of makes it simple when you're looking at it that way. Okay, so let me catch up to my notes here. I think a lot of that I just covered. All right, so as long as the money now, the money monthly, the money later, and deposit are more than how much you pay, you make a deal. So why do I have to spend all these hundreds and thousands of hours telling people how to do deal structuring? Which is why I put in the description that I can take somebody from novice to pro immediately. I mean, do I have to teach you how to do math? I mean, 10 minus 7 means there's 3 in the between. If you're doing that in thousands, 10,000 minus 7,000 means you got $3,000. So if you look at the 4 acquisition numbers, which are price, payment, term, and deposit, and as long as you can collect more than each one of those, then you have a deal. And the more of those you can collect, the more money you make. So if you can buy for $200, sell for $220. If you can rent for $1,100 and sell for $1,600, and if your term can go for 10 years and you only give 3 years term, and you don't have to give a deposit, why do I have to teach you about deal structuring? Why are you all worried about it? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, we're not anymore. We're all set, right, everybody? Everybody's totally set now. Be careful, you might do yourself out of a podcast, Bill.
So the more you feel confident about how you can sell, the more, and the only way you're going to do that is to bring it to the market. So if you're not confident, am I still there? Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
You're good.
The more confidence you have, the higher up the hierarchy you go.
Yeah.
If you have very little confidence, then you just don't commit yourself, and you tell the seller, well, you know what, I think you're asking too much money, but I'm willing to bring it to the market for 90 days and see what they say.
Right. So all the options will do that. You can go check it. So what about at the top of the food chain? You just already know because you have some idea of the market. I mean, if you're doing this at all, you have to have some idea.
You have really good confidence. Like if you're buying at 70 cents on a dollar, it's like when we bought that $200,000 house for $27,000. There's not even confidence. Confidence isn't even the word. It's total certainty.
Folks, I wrote a check.
Yeah.
I mean, believe me, I've never written a check that big before.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah. Yep.
Right. So I mean, think about it. When a bank lends you money, what do they want? They want they want to know how confident you are in this deal. If you're willing to put your money in, then they're willing to put their money in, right?
Yeah, and they won't put their money in until you put your money in.
That's what they call skin in the game.
Yeah, and they do the appraisal to make sure, which is their way of taking it to the market in a sense. They send a guy out to see what it's like, specifically this house compared to the market.
All right, so at the end of this podcast, how about this punchline? Because I've talked about this a lot, but this is very, very cool punchline. You ready?
What you got? Yes.
Deeds own property. Everything else controls the property.
Absolutely.
So the deed owns the property, and everything else, lease options or leases or options and land contracts and, subject to loans, all that stuff, they don't own the property. Mm-hmm. Deeds own the property. Everything else controls the property. So if you're really confident and you want to own the property and you don't want to lose this deal ever, then you get a deed in your name. Or if you're going to put money into the deal and you want to own the property so you don't lose your money, then you put a deed in your name. Yep. If you have any doubt or lack of confidence or anything like that, then you just control the property with an option. or an agreement for deed, right? And there's a big difference between the two of them in the legal arena, right? If you understand this, it makes a lot of sense, right? And soon this paperwork topic will be a lot easier for you. So if you're nervous, don't put documents in your name that are going to have legal ramifications, like a deed. Just put an option in your name, and then you have the ability to squirm out of it, because the option says you can squirm out of this. Right? Why do you think wholesaling works so good? Because the purchase and sales contract has weasel clause in it that allows you to squirm out of it.
Yeah, well, look what realtors do. How many realtors get stuck buying the house if they don't sell it? Come on.
Exactly right. Right?
And they don't get nervous about listing a house. They don't get nervous about not selling it. They just go home and have supper.
Right.
So, nothing to get nervous about.
So what I'm hoping I can portray here in the 2 hours between episode number 278 and 280 is that from now on, we're going to not do this backwards. We're going to, when we're negotiating with somebody, we're going to look at the market and what we think we can get from the market, and we're going to decide our confidence level on that market, how much we know about it, and how much we feel good about it, and how much we've done in the past, or all that stuff. How confident are we that the deal that the seller's asking us to do, we can go do?
I like it.
Right?
That helps me a lot, because I'm still learning. I have a certain few years of experience, but it doesn't mean I know. I still have to ask questions. I still have to look and what's the market like. I'm watching. And things keep changing. I think the problem is things keep changing.
Yeah.
But if you're in an option deal on a piece of property, it doesn't matter. You go find out what's happening right now. You'll find out in a week or two. You'll know.
Yeah.
Right? How long does it take to figure it out?
You could go test the market.
Yeah. I mean, you sold a house in 7 days. Sean just did his in 15. It doesn't drag on and on.
Right.
You find out right away or you don't do it.
He just texted me, by the way, while we're on the phone. I'm going to read it to you while we're on this podcast. Yeah. So here's the text. Got the $10,000 wire, 2.3K on the way today, and set up payments. I can have her re-sign with your comments. No big deal. How do you think Will's progressing? That's his text.
Nice. See, right in the middle of an actual deal, folks.
Yeah. So,
Good job. John, good job.
Yeah, exactly. So, in summary, before we bug out here, because we're going to go, when you're talking about deal structuring, the math is the math, right? So the math is all about deal structuring, the math. Right? So this is how much I'm going to pay. What will the market pay me back?
Yep.
Or more important, the market's worth this much. This is how much I could pay.
Yeah.
I think I can get this much rent. Here's what I can pay for the rent. I think I can get this much term. So in other words, I can get a 7-year term from my seller, but I can get away with only giving my buyer 2 years.
Yeah.
Right? That's the math. Then what happens is your confidence level is which documents you use. How confident could you get that? And how obligated do you want to be? Do you want to get the deed in your name and be fully obligated? Fully responsible? Or are you a little bit nervous and you're not sure, so I better use an option agreement where I'm only going to put up $100, and if I don't do it, then so what, and I'm good. I walk away. And that's how you structure deals.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, guys, don't forget that in the description of this podcast, there's a link for the documents. You can go check it out. Make sure you leave us a review or some 5 stars somewhere or whatever you feel. Also, make sure you subscribe to our channel. I'm in here twice. How could that be?
Don't let the other one come in because you can't occupy the same space at the same oh, good.
Yeah.
You would have disappeared,
Yeah, so I was just going to end off the podcast by saying make sure you go leave us a review. Make sure you subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to us. One of the things I haven't talked about, Peter, is about a month ago I realized that we weren't on Spotify. I don't know how we were not on Spotify, but now we're on Spotify and we're picking up some listeners there too. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel wherever you're listening to us or watching us. I really appreciate it. I know Peter does too. Really appreciate the support. I think we're well into 1.5 million downloads, so we have quite an audience that we have listening to us. So I keep losing internet, so I'm just going to bug out. So thank you for being with us, and we will talk to you next week. Adios.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.